I've come to realize that we are actually all like a tube of toothpaste. When we get stressed, and just imagine that you've got a tube of toothpaste and you're the tube of toothpaste and you're getting stressed and it's squeezing and squeezing, we end up being squeezed out and it's like a tube of toothpaste. What happens when we are squeezed is our character flaws, they tend to ooze out. When we get pressed, our character issues, they ooze out. When issues get blown up, conflicts erupt, you can't put it back in the tube again. And so as we continue to work through Paul's instructions to the Jesus followers, where he says, love is patient and love is kind. And this week we're going to look at this one. He says, love is not boastful or proud. It's not. Remember, I mentioned in week 1 that Paul has some concepts for us. He wants us to embrace some aspects of what love is, and he wants us to reject. He wants us to push away and reflect and not embrace certain aspects of what love is. So patience and kindness, he wants us to embrace. Boastfulness and pride, he wants us to resist. And although most of us are still learning how to love the way Paul describes in this 1 Corinthians 13 passage, don't forget, Corinth is in Greece. They think they've already got love all figured out. They think they are the experts in this arena of love. And I think there are times that we actually think we've got love all figured out too. I know I'm still learning to love the way that Paul's talking about. And so let me be clear about what Paul's writing here. Pride and love cannot coexist. They cannot. Like last week, selfishness gets in the way of kindness. Love doesn't focus on self. This is what pride does. Pride puts us at the center. Pride makes us think about ourselves. And the word boastful describes someone who brags and has big opinions about themselves. They like to talk big and they like to brag about their own accomplishments and their own abilities. They magnify themselves while actually minimizing others. They use others to get what they want and get what they desire. They crave attention, approval, applause. And so the word proud then describes someone who's puffed up. They're conceited. They think more highly of themselves than they should. They have a big head and they have an attitude of importance and superiority, usually unaware of their own weaknesses and their own limitations. They usually have the right answer. They can sound harsh when they're giving that answer. They're condescending, sometimes argumentative. They crave power and they crave prestige and they crave control, especially at the expense of other people. They often dismiss others' ideas, others' feelings, their opinions. And so if you're like most people, and I mean that, like most people, you can probably think of someone who fits those descriptions beautifully. There is somebody in your life, I'm sure, that you're like, man, they are boastful and they are prideful. That's who they are. Of course, we would never consider ourselves to be boastful or prideful first. And so let's ask ourselves just a couple of questions. Have I ever exaggerated something I had done to impress anybody? Have you? Have you ever exaggerated something that you've done just to impress them? Have you ever made fun of somebody so that you could look better at their expense? Have you ever done anything either ridiculous or absolutely outrageous to get somebody's attention? Have you used flattery to get something you want from somebody? Have you ever belittled somebody's feelings? Have you ever looked down on somebody so that you can feel better about yourself? Have you ever refused to listen to someone's perspective and instead insist that your perspective is the right perspective and the only perspective and the perspective that should be done? If you can answer yes to any of those few questions, then we need to learn from Paul to resist, because love is not boastful and love is not proud. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is, let's not think about boastful and pride. Let's think about humility. See, love is humble. And that's what we embrace. Love is humble. I think it's considering others as more important than ourselves. It's looking at the interest of others instead of our own interests. It's resisting our selfishness again and again and again. There's an author who I really like. His name is C.S. Lewis, and he wrote a book titled Mere Christianity. And in the book, Lewis wrote about a humble person. And this is what he said. He says, a humble person will not be thinking about humility. They actually won't be thinking about humility at all. He will not be thinking about himself at all. See, if we're thinking about how to be humble, guess what we're thinking about? Ourselves again. Instead, we just need to be humble. His antidote is to admit that we think of ourselves more often than we probably should. And so Lewis wrote this. He said, if you think you are not conceited, you are very conceited indeed, because you're thinking, once again, of ourselves. See, loving people means caring about them without any agenda whatsoever. And that's hard for us to do, because we often look at love to be a means to an end, to give us a result that we're looking for, to get us something that we want, to give us somebody we want. As soon as we have an agenda, it's not love anymore. It's not. As soon as we apply agenda, or we desire something, or we want something, or we want to get somewhere, it's not love anymore. This is why love is humble. And so this one's challenging. And I hope that with your group right now, you'll be able to talk about what humility really looks like, and how love is humble, and how it applies to your life and the people that you want to love. And maybe there's even a moment where we could admit and be honest that sometimes we show love to people because we want something in return, and that's the wrong motivation. Have you ever had that moment where you realize, ooh, I'm loving because I want something? Love is humble. So talk about that now.